Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the PREVNet podcast. This is a show where we talk about all things relevant to youth relationships and explore exciting and evidence-based initiatives that help promote healthier relationships and prevent interpersonal violence. My name's Megan, and I'm joining you today from Treaty 7 territory in Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, Alberta. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Dr. Sara Crann. Sara's doing some incredible work with a program designed to prevent sexual violence against women in universities. The program has demonstrated some exciting successes and is now being adapted for youth and delivered to teens and young women across Canada. Sara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about who you are and your background in the gender-based violence prevention space?
Sure. So my name is Sara Crann, she, her pronouns, and I'm an adjunct assistant professor at the University of Windsor in the Department of Psychology. And I've been working or volunteering in the gender-based violence prevention space for about 20 years, primarily as a researcher. And I got my start in the sector as an undergraduate student when I started volunteering at my campus sexual assault support telephone line back in the early 2000s. And from there, went on to be a graduate student and focused primarily on intimate partner violence research with adult women, then moved into sexual assault research with adult women, and eventually moved into more of youth-focused research around gender and relationships and violence. And first got connected to the Flip the Script with EAAA program when I was a grad student at the University of Guelph, and was working as a research assistant on the first trial in Canada to test the effectiveness of the program for university women. So that was my initial connection to the program, and then went on to continue to work with Flip the Script and the adaptation for girls as a postdoctoral fellow, and now continuing that on as I'm at the University of Windsor.
Great. I always love hearing about people's background because it's so cool to hear that you have a little bit of frontline experience and how you've carried that forward into a research role and into the Flip the Script program. As Sara mentioned, the program we're talking about is called Flip the Script, and it has been around for a while. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the story of the program and how was it identified that there is a need for a program like Flip the Script?
Yeah, so just briefly, Flip the Script with EAAA, which I'll just call Flip the Script. It's an evidence-based sexual assault resistance education program. It's delivered in small groups, so about 15 or 20 women by two highly trained, sort of what we call near-peer facilitators. It's 12 hours long. It's 4 units that are each 3 hours, and it's focused on giving the participants the knowledge and skills and the confidence to effectively resist sexual assault without limiting their personal freedom or holding them responsible for sexual assault. So it's really interactive. There's lots of games, activities. There's 3 hours of a self-defense program based on Wendo women's self-defense. So it's designed to be like a fun educational program that also gives lots of opportunities for skill development. So the story of how the program kind of came to be is really a story of my colleagues, Charlene Sen, who's also at the University of Windsor and who is the developer of this program. And the original version was designed for young women in university, and it's based on a theoretical model of sexual assault resistance that is called AAA, developed by Patricia Rose and Mary Koss, that Charlene really brought to life in the Flip the Script program. And it was really designed to address the reality that young women in university and college are at a heightened risk for sexual assault victimization, particularly in those first 2 years, and that prevention programs that are designed to reduce men's perpetration of sexual assault, unfortunately, just haven't shown long-term effectiveness at actually changing perpetration behaviors. So there's this gap where we don't have effective prevention, primary prevention programs, and girls, women, and other groups who are at heightened risk for sexual assault are still experiencing that risk. So the program was really born out of a belief that um, people who are at high risk for sexual assault deserve to have access to the evidence-based knowledge and skills that will help them to protect themselves and to resist sexual victimization.
That's really helpful grounding. I remember when I was in university, there was a lot of like social media chatter about how we're always talking about what women should be doing or should be wearing, and we don't talk enough about men. But with that theoretical sort of background in mind in the context of the program, it's I can see how it could be really empowering as well for women to have those discussions in that context. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I had a question just about what it means to be. You mentioned that the program's delivered by near peers. What does that mean?
Yeah, so in the context of the program, what it really means is these are slightly old, like no more than 10 years older facilitators, 10 years older than the participants, I should say, who are perceived by the participants to be relatable, like within the same general age, but also seen as having some expertise in what they're talking about. So the facilitators go through kind of a rigorous 7-day training process where they really become experts in the Flip the Script program delivery. And at the same time, they're, presenting themselves in a way that feels relatable. So we meaning as the researchers, when we were evaluating this program, and it was sort of living in the university before it went out into the broader community, we're really intentional about hiring facilitators who wouldn't look like or be perceived as like your mom or a teacher, for example. We really was really important for the facilitators to be seen as kind of peers, but expert peers. That's what we mean by near peer.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned some of the limitations in terms of programming that we have for boys and men right now. Uh, we've actually talked to some folks working in programming for boys and men on this podcast, and while there's some good evidence that programming for masculine identifying folks can support things like sexual health efficacy and challenging harmful gender ideologies, we don't have strong evidence to show that they are reducing sexual assaults, at least on a large scale. But this program that you're talking about, it has a great evidence base behind it. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how it was evaluated.
Sure. So both the university program and now most recently the adaptation that we've done for younger adolescent girls were evaluated with a randomized control trial, or an RCT, which is essentially like a clinical trial. And that's considered the gold standard evaluation methodology. And basically what happens is you recruit your participants and then randomly assign them into your different conditions. So in our treatment condition was the Flip the Script program, and in the control condition was what is called standard of care, usual practice. So at the time when the Flip the Script program for university women was evaluated, this was back in 2011 or 2012 is when it started. Standard of care for university women around sexual assault prevention or resistance was basically just access to information and brochures, maybe at your campus sexual health clinic or campus doctor's office. And so that was our control condition that we were testing Flip the Script against. And To be clear, I wasn't a researcher on this project. I think I mentioned I was a graduate assistant or research assistant on this project at the time. So this project was really led by Charlene Sen and the co-investigators on it. But after your participants are randomized into either getting flip the script or the control condition, they complete surveys sort of at the beginning before they take the program, and then follow up for this one was 24 months of follow up. So they would complete surveys every 6 months, looking at the main outcome that we were interested in, which was sexual assault victimization. So we use a similar model for evaluating the girls program, except for because we knew that the university program was so effective, we didn't think it was ethical to have a control condition where girls weren't getting the program. We didn't want to withhold an effective program from them. So we used what's called a waitlist control design. And basically it means if you're in the control group, you don't get flip the script today, but you will get it in 6 months. And so everyone who was participated in the study had an opportunity to take the program, which was also true for the university study as well. It was just a slightly different research design.
So I'm wondering, after you collected all of that data, you obviously learned that the program was successful in reducing sexual violence victimization.
Okay, so we recently completed the randomized control trial evaluation of the girls program. We had 343 girls participate in the study from Windsor, London, and Kingston. And what we found from that data is that the girls program, when we compared the girls who took Flip the Script to girls who had not yet taken the program, girls who took Flip the Script experienced a 79% reduction in attempted rape compared to girls who hadn't yet taken the program, which is a massive reduction in attempted rape experiences, and is a really exciting finding because it just provides more evidence of the sort of promise of this program as in reducing sexual assault victimization. We also, similar to the findings from the university program, it also impacts positively things like rape myth acceptance. So girls who take the program have lower rape myth acceptance. They have lower self-blame. They feel more confident that they could successfully defend themselves if they needed to. They're able to more accurately assess their risk for sexual assault. So in addition to like these big outcomes of reduced sexual violence victimization, we also see all these really positive changes to attitudes and beliefs that help drive those reductions in sexual assault victimization.
Those are incredible results. A 79% reduction is that's really incredible. You guys are doing awesome work with the program.
Yeah, and so it's for attempted rape, and unfortunately, the completed rape wasn't statistically significant. We also had a fairly small sample, which is impacting that. Like the intervention group had lower rates than the control group, which is moving in the right direction. It just wasn't statistically significant.
And I'm wondering if that data gave you any insights about what specifically was working about the program or resonating about the program with the people who participated in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we learned that the theoretical model that the program was built on really holds true. And so when we were looking to adapt the program for teens, we knew that those core components that mapped onto the theory, like helping participants accurately identify their risk for sexual assault, helping them overcome the emotional obstacles to resisting sexual assault, giving them verbal and physical self-defense skills to be able to act. This is the AAA model: assess, acknowledge, and then act, were all key pieces to effective sexual assault resistance. We also learned from our evaluation that the program really resonated with young women in university. And we've similarly learned that with our teen adaptation, that girls and young women really enjoy taking the program. They do think it's fun and they get a lot out of it. They enjoy meeting other young women or girls from their community or school in the same age group. They really enjoy the relationship building with the facilitators and just having that space to connect with other girls and women and talk about these difficult topics. We heard a lot from our pilot research to inform how we were going to adapt the program for girls, that girls just don't have a space to talk about these things. They're not getting it at school. Their sexual health education is maybe less than desirable. Not a lot of opportunity or openness, maybe with parents or guardians, to have these conversations. They were just appreciative of the opportunity for the space to be able to talk about things they don't normally get to talk about.
Absolutely. I can definitely appreciate how just creating environments where it's safe to talk about sexual violence could be super impactful in that way. And I'm wondering, did all of that data that you collected, what sort of insights did it give you into how you wanted to tweak the program and sort of tailor it to younger girls and teens?
Yeah, so when we received Public Health Agency of Canada funding to adapt the program for youth, we actually took the first 2 years of that project to figure out how to adapt the program. So we had a girls advisory committee that we put together to consult with girls about program changes. We did a couple of research studies with focus groups with youth to really learn more about, how are they talking and thinking about relationships? How were relationships with dating partners or sexual partners or male peers, classmates? How did those fit into their lives and what importance did they have for them? So we did have a whole process for adapting the program for girls. But what I'll say, what we learned from some of the university evaluation studies that we did that I think was really helpful in moving the program to the girls program was a lot of the pieces about what needed to be kept. So again, I mentioned the relationship with the facilitators and the importance of them being seen as relatable and approachable and open, but also as having a certain level of expertise in the content that they were talking about. So we knew that was a piece that absolutely had to stay in the girls program, and we had the evaluation data to support that. We knew that the order of the units, where in the first unit, there's a lot of time dedicated to icebreakers and developing some rapport and comfort with the group. We knew that piece was going to be really important to maintain in a program for youth. And some of the pilot research that Charlene had done early on for the university program, she'd learned a lot of things in the pilot research, like our fourth unit, which is relationships and sexuality, was initially first. The thinking being this is the fun, interesting content that youth or young women are really going to be drawn to, but quickly learned that you actually needed to come last, because there needed to be kind of all of the work to build rapport with the group so they were comfortable enough to be able to have conversations about relationships and sexuality. So that got moved to the end. So there was a sort of a long process, 10 years of kind of pilot research and evaluation that went into developing the program. So I think by the time we actually evaluated the university program, it was a fairly well-oiled machine, so to speak.
That's super helpful and really interesting to hear your reflections on that because we've talked to a couple of other youth oriented programs on the podcast, uh, like the Wise Guys program, the Sparks program. And both of them also mentioned kind of the importance of the icebreaker component and not diving too much into the heavy before you've had a chance to make everyone comfortable. So it's interesting to hear those connections and themes between programs and between guests. And you kind of touched on this already, but I'm wondering if you want to elaborate at all on how you kind of tweaked the program to be accessible and resonate with teen girls, because obviously this is a developmentally kind of distinct group. Yeah, I'd be super interested to hear about how you're engaging them in a different way.
Sure. Yeah. So we took like a multi-pronged approach to the adaptation of the program. As I said, we spent the first 2 years of our funded project just figuring out how to actually go about adapting the program. And so we started out with a couple of research studies. So the first study was a focus group study, and we met with girls across Ontario because we were focused on Ontario for this study, for this project. And we just talked to them about their perspectives on relationships of all varieties with boys. We weren't asking for personal experiences, but rather just how, as a teen girl, how do you think about relationships? What do they mean to you? What are the kinds of things that you do? Like, what does dating look like for a 14-year-old girl? What do you talk to your friends about in terms of relationships? Those types of things. We were just trying to get a better sense of what is the kind of social and developmental realities for girls of this age when it comes to relationships with boys. And then we learned some stuff from that study that was really helpful. Like, we knew immediately was going to require adaptation in the program, like the language that was used in the program to talk about dating. It just didn't make sense for this younger age group. And so we made a couple of tweaks to the program. And then in our second study, we recruited girls to actually take this very lightly adapted version of the program. And then after each unit, we paused and had a little feedback session. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What didn't you understand? What do you want more of, less of? What can we change? And so we collected feedback. I think we ran the program 8 times and collected feedback from girls in that way as well. And so that gave us a really great base for how we needed to change the program. And then we also had a youth advisory committee that we put together. I think over the 2 years that we had the committee, there was 9 girls in total on it. These were paid positions, and we hired girls to sit on the committee, and they helped in lots of different ways with both the research studies that I just mentioned, as well as the actual adaptations to the program. So they helped co-design some of the content, or we drafted content and they gave feedback on it. They participated as kind of mock participants when we'd run through a new activity that we were thinking of including, kind of get their feedback on, did the instructions make sense? What did it feel like to be in this activity? What could we change? So they were absolutely instrumental in helping us adapt the program for teens. And then the sort of fourth prong of our approach was doing key informant interviews with organizations who work with youth, not necessarily in the gender-based violence prevention space, but also in the public health space or just sort of the general community social service space, to learn more about, from a service provider perspective, what are they seeing in the youth that they serve? What needs seem to be unmet? How might a sexual assault resistance program benefit their community? What are things that we really need to be thinking about? So one of the things that came out of one of those conversations was condom use in youth and how public health is seeing a huge drop in condom use. And so our Flip the Script already has a section around safer sex practices, but we knew that that was then going to be really critical to keep in the adolescent version of the program and even bolster it a little bit. So yeah, that was the general process we used for adapting the program.
That's super helpful, and really great to hear how much you incorporated youth voice when designing this for a youth audience and partnered with community. So great work on that. Um, I was wondering, sexual violence is obviously quite a heavy topic, and I suspect quite a heavy topic for this younger age group, especially. And I'm wondering if there are specific ways that you created a safe space for youth to explore these issues.
Yeah. So I think two things. We have embedded strategies to help youth feel safer to explore these topics into the program itself. And then there's also the strategies that the organizations who are actually delivering the girls program currently are also using to increase girls' sense of safety in the program. So some of the things that are built into the program, it's like, as I mentioned, we have a lot of sort of icebreaker activities in the first session to help girls get to know each other, start to build comfort. There are ground rules that are agreed upon in the first session that stay up on the wall throughout the whole program that are often referred back to, especially if there's going to be, they're moving into an activity that maybe provokes or has the potential to provoke a lot of victim blaming, for example. The facilitators will remind everybody of the ground rules kind of before they get started again. As I mentioned, the sort of selection of the facilitators as being seen as like knowledgeable but relatable and helping create that safe space through their presence and their facilitation skills. So there's some of those pieces built into the program, and then some of the things that our partner organizations are doing as well are really building on kind of their community presence and the reputation that they already have in the community as an organization that offers like high quality programming. They also in the advertising of the program, do a lot of work to make sure that the materials they're using to advertise are really inviting and interesting and relatable to youth, are accessible to youth, so that there's a like good understanding of what this program is about. And then the fourth unit kind of is not part of the original theoretical model. They have resource kits that Charlene added, which given to girls. Resource kits are a standard part of the program, but each local organization can kind of add whatever they want to the resource kit. So making sure that things are included in there that help girls connect to other resources in their community, for example. One of our partner organizations, their office space is like a literal house. So, it's like a cozy, warm, inviting environment. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you could help build safety or build a sense of safety for youth. And yeah, I think as the program expands and more organizations are offering the program, I'm really excited to see a kind of put together maybe a toolkit to help implementing organizations think through some of the ways that they can help increase that sense of safety and that sense of comfort. Because as you said, these are not easy topics for girls to talk about.
Is the program, you mentioned that it's multi-session, like how many sessions is it typically?
Yeah, so it's 4 sessions. Each session is 3 hours long. The first 3 sessions follow that AAA model. So the first session is called Assess, and it's really focused on helping girls more effectively identify like real risk for sexual assault. The second unit is called Acknowledge. That's really focused on overcoming the emotional barriers to resisting. So like trying to undo all that socialization that girls and women go through to be like the nice girl, don't upset people, put everybody's needs before your own. You have to unpack all of that in order to be able to set a boundary and resist someone who's trying to coerce you or assault you. The third unit is ACT, that's the self defense component. And then the fourth unit is not part of the original theoretical model, but was something that Charlene added, which is called relationships and sexuality. And it is emancipatory sex education. It's really focused on, now that we've talked about sexual assault and sexual coercion, let's focus on what do we actually want in relationships? What do healthy relationships look like? Let's talk about sexuality. Let's talk about sex that we do want to have or we might want to have in the future. And it really ends the program on a positive, empowering note.
I love that addition because, as you mentioned, I'm not sure exactly how much it's changed, but growing up, I really received, fear-based sexual health education. So ending on that sort of positive and empowering note after some of the heavy stuff, I can see how that would, really resonate with the youth and, be an awesome addition. Um, So, all of what you've touched on so far kind of speaks to how important it is for this program to feel embedded in community, which obviously requires some strong partnerships to pull off. Can you talk a little bit about how you selected the sites where the program would run, and how you built that trust and generated excitement in the communities where it's running?
Sure. So um, our first grant from public health to adapt and then test the girls program just concluded this year at the end of March. And since then, we have a second grant from Public Health Agency of Canada to scale up the Girls Flip the Script with EAAA program. So it's within that project that we've partnered with a couple of community-based organizations to implement the program. And the goal of this project is to look at different community-based implementation models, knowing that it's a program that needs to live in the community, right? It can't live at the university. That's not going to be an effective way to get the program out into the world. It really does need to sort of be owned and live in the community space. And so when we were thinking about who we might want to partner with to actually help us test these different implementation models, we knew that we wanted to have some diversity in the type of organization. So for example, we knew that it probably made good sense to have a sexual assault center be one of the partner organizations because they would have a very particular implementation model. We also suspected that public health would be another model that we would want to look at because public health nurses who are in schools already have that existing connection to high schools and delivering sexual assault prevention and public health, sexuality education in schools. So part of the rationale was making sure that we had different types of organizations with different types of service delivery models. And then once we kind of had that sorted out, then we thought, okay, who do we have existing relationships with that might be interested in coming onto this project and supporting the implementation? And so our three partner organizations right now, it's North Shore Women's Center, which is out of British Columbia. They're in North Vancouver. They've actually been delivering Flip the Script with EAAA for several years in BC. WECHU, which is the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, they also have been connected into Flip the Script for a number of years. They collaborated on our previous project that was focused on the adaptation and evaluation. So they've joined as a partner. And then the Sexual Assault Center Kingston was also connected to our previous project. And so they've joined as our third implementing partner out of Kingston. And so all three of these organizations, as I mentioned, are really deeply embedded in their communities. They're longstanding organizations. They have deep networks within the community and strong reputations. And so I think that piece has been really critical to helping build trust and excitement in the community for this program. They've integrated the Flip the Script program like into their existing organizational programming. So this becomes just one other program that they already offer, which helps build trust as well, that it's sort of a reputable program. And then they each are taking different approaches to connect with youth and parents and teachers and educators in the community to help increase awareness about sort of the existence of this program and the opportunity to take it. One of the things that actually all of those organizations are doing that I think is really cool is they invite community members to participate in the facilitator training. So as part of our facilitator training, they do full run-throughs of the program as part of their practice. And so the partner organizations have been inviting community members in to sit as audience members, which helps them actually get to see what the program looks like, build an understanding of, what it does, what its purpose is, and then they can take that back to their school or their organization or their family and sort of help spread awareness for the program in that way. And then I think a lot of reliance on just their existing networks to help build interest in the program. And North Shore Women's Center, for example, has been doing a lot of work in the schools in Vancouver and surrounding area and Nanaimo, and sort of building out relationships within the school network, which has been really amazing. So just so grateful to be working with these organizations because it is like the driving force of this program. And it's just really exciting to see it out in the world and girls getting access to it.
Amazing. It's so cool to hear about how the program continues to sort of grow, build momentum, and reach new demographics. So with that in mind, I'm wondering if you can give us any information about future plans or what's next for the Girls Flip the Script program.
Yeah, so for the girls program, the current project that we're working on to sort of develop and test these different types of implementation models, this program goes until 2029. And by the end of that, we will have, hopefully, sort of a better understanding of what it looks like for a public health unit to run the program, what it looks like for a sexual assault center to run the program, what it looks like for a women's center or another sort of community-based organization like a youth center, for example, to run the program. And then a number of years ago, Charlene set up a nonprofit organization called the SARE Center. So SARE is SARE, Sexual Assault Resistance Education Center. And it is an organization that helps train and provide implementation support to universities and organizations implementing Flip the Script. So if you want to attend the Train the Trainer to be able to then bring the program back to your organization, community, that happens through the SARE Center. And so as part of our current project, we're going to be transitioning the program from the University of Windsor into the SARE Center so that in a couple of years, if a sexual assault center in Alberta is interested in delivering the program in their community, they can contact the SARE Center and they would be able to access the program that way. And we're actually hoping, I'll just sort of make this plug right now, if there is enough interest in doing a Train the Trainer workshop for the girls program. We have not run one out of the SARE Center yet. We've done it within our research project, but we'd love to know if there's interest from organizations in attending a girls Flip the Script with EAAA Train the Trainer workshop, because if there is enough interest, we might be able to pull one together sooner than 2029.
That's amazing. It's very cool to see that you've set up that infrastructure to meet demand where it arises, and I hope there are lots of people listening who are their interest is piqued and they can envision a way to bring this program into their own communities and start these discussions where they live and work. Um, and you mentioned the SARE Center. So if folks are interested in learning more about the program and how they might get involved, what would the next steps for them be?
Yeah, we can head to the SARE Center website. It's sarecenter.org. Also, feel free to reach out to me as well. I also just wanted to mention there are a couple of other adaptations of the program in the works. So there is a French version of the program already available. It's called Beta, and it's been tested with Francophone university students in Quebec and Moncton. So that is currently available and is in the process of being scaled up in Quebec. There's also an online version for university students that's currently being tested with 1,300 university students in Canada and the US. They're just in their last year of data collection, so an online version of Flip the Script will be available shortly. And then there's also an online version for trans university students that's being piloted this fall in the US as well. So the SARE Center would be the place to learn more about any of those versions of the program.
Wow, you guys are keeping busy. Well, thank you. That's definitely worth mentioning and including. And yeah, thank you so much for joining today, taking the time and sharing about this awesome program. I can't wait to learn more about where it goes in the future. Yeah, thank you so much. This broadcast was brought to you by the Promoting Relationships and Eliminating Violence Network, also known as PREVNet. PREVNet is a national not-for-profit organization dedicated to preventing youth interpersonal violence. PREVNet collaborates with communities, organizations, educators, researchers, and youth to create and share learning resources that address bullying and teen dating violence across Canada. For more information about how you can get involved in eliminating violence and promoting relationships among youth, visit prevnet.ca.